Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. So, I've been a bit MIA on here lately and taking some time for myself and to work on some projects I've been wrapping up. So, I figured I would jump back in with something a little more personal. Today, we're going to talk about my creation story, how I got to where I'm at, and what led me to build a life around motorcycle travel and the things I'm passionate about. I have touched on this a bit in other videos, but I want to get a little deeper on how things got me to this point. So if you're curious to learn a little more about what drives me, stick around. Okay, let's jump in. So, some of you may know that recovery from addiction is a part of my story. I'm not going to get into the gritty details of that too much, but it is a part of what I'm going to talk about today. So, anyways, my first experience with motorcycles was at a relatively late age. I was 19 years old the first time I rode a bike. I was honestly terrified. It seemed like something I would never be able to master. My older brother Billy taught me on a 600 Ninja in a Carl's Jr. parking lot back in San Diego. When I finally worked up to riding around on the streets, I would stall at red lights. I was shaky and not at all confident on a bike, but there was something there that appealed to me. Unfortunately, during this time, I was also in the depths of addiction, so it didn't stick right away because it just wasn't a priority. And thankfully, because I probably wouldn't have survived mixing motorcycles with the things I was doing back then. But it did give me a glimmer of hope that there was more to life than what I was doing. And the seed was definitely planted. Fast forward a bit, my mental health was at an all time low. My addiction was running my life, and I was solidly at rock bottom. I had dabbled with motorcycles off and on up to this point, but it still hadn't gotten its foothold in who I was as a person. My anxiety was crippling, and I was incredibly depressed. I had also pushed everyone away in my life and found myself utterly alone and hopeless. I had moved to New York looking for something better, and things only got worse there. But luckily, New York was where I needed to be at that point in my life. Long story short, I was on the edge and teetering between giving up completely and ending things, or I just don't know what else. But I couldn't go on the way I was. I knew that much. But I didn't know how to pull myself out of the hole I had been digging for the better part of a decade. Continuing down that path was certain suicide, and ending it by choice just didn't seem to be an option for whatever reason. I decided to reach out and get help and began a long process of fixing my life and really becoming a person. I would say fixing the person I was, but I was honestly just a shell of a person at that point. So I was at square one with nowhere to go but up. I managed to stay clean and sober through the first difficult few years and started feeling human again, but I was still depressed and riddled with anxiety and left wondering what it was all for. All the struggle and pain, there had to be more to life than that for me. I put so much work into getting better and didn't know where to go from there. So I decided to buy a motorcycle and try that again. It just seemed like there might be something there I had missed the first time around. So I bought a Kawasaki Vulcan 900. It was orange, it was beautiful, I loved it. I was so nervous riding it after so long that I had the salesman bring it around the building to a side street where I could kind of get reacclimated with all the controls and start relearning how to ride a motorcycle. I knew I made the right decision as soon as my feet came up off the ground. I felt alive. I felt like I was doing something exciting. I was living. I had definitely been missing something, and this machine seemed to fill that hole for me, somehow. I spent the next few months riding around Long Island and quickly felt that it wasn't quite enough. I decided to take a big trip somewhere, but I knew nothing about motorcycle travel. And honestly, I didn't even know it was a thing that people did. From New York, I thought maybe I could get up to Maine, but that wasn't quite enough. That evolved into maybe riding to Florida and then back, but that didn't seem big enough either. I was craving an adventure of a lifetime. It had to be big. I decided to quit my job and ride my bike to Oregon and then to San Diego and back around to New York. I figured the trip would take about 2 months, which was about right, but I severely underestimated the cost. I was staying in hotels, and I made just about every mistake you can make when doing something like that. But I absolutely fell in love with the experience. I met a lot of people on the road who were doing similar things, and they opened my eyes to a whole world of motorcycle travel. I felt alive, immersed in the world in a fantastic way, and all of my problems went away. The sense of being constantly present was new to me and exciting and immediately addicting. I felt more alive than ever before in my life on that trip. I was happy and fulfilled every day, even when things got tough. I loved every minute of it. I found myself growing as a person too, learning so many new things and becoming the person I feel I was meant to be. I saw so many beautiful places that made me start to feel like there must be some force out there more powerful than we are, whatever you want to call it. Being on the bike became like my church. I met so many wonderful people that helped me learn to trust and see the good in people. It was a transformative trip while it lasted, but eventually I returned home to New York, financially broke and feeling empty. I was tired from being on the road and looking forward to a break, but I didn't realize how hard it would hit me being back home. I felt so out of place going back to work and trying to live a normal day to day life. I was missing the instant connection between task and result that you get on the road. I had felt so much more at home and so much more myself while traveling. I had to find a way to get back out there. I had a great job working in HVAC, air conditioning, and things like that, and I made decent money, but it wasn't fulfilling, and I started thinking about a career change. The best I could come up with was motorcycle mechanics, and the school choice was pretty limited. So I could either go to Arizona or Florida, and of course, you probably already know this, but I chose Arizona. I decided to ship all my things out and ride my bike out, which I had recently upgraded, by the way, to something a little more touring friendly at that point. It was a Victory Cross Country, which was blue and also beautiful. It was another great trip, but a short one. I got by in Arizona while in school by taking off in all directions whenever I could, exploring every nook and cranny in the Southwest. I made a lot of great friends there, and I learned a lot in school, but quickly decided that I didn't want to commit to a life in one place, which a career like that would certainly require. While I was in school, I started formulating a plan for a trip that evolved similar to the first trip. It started small, maybe a trip to Alaska, and evolved to South America, and eventually I decided I should just build a life that allowed me to just keep going. I had already learned that coming home from a trip broke and starting over at a new job sucked, and I didn't want to do that. I spent afternoons after school researching all aspects of travel, motorcycle travel, gear, how to start an online business. I tested out different gear. I went camping as often as I could, and I learned everything I could about motorcycle travel and camping. As far as the business, one thing I learned about myself in school was that the only thing I loved as much as riding motorcycles on big adventures was sharing that with other people. Getting other people to go on big trips with me, it brought me great joy. So I wanted to find work that would allow me to do that as much as possible. Being a YouTuber seemed like the right choice, the obvious choice, but it seemed so out of reach for me. My anxiety was still very high and I wasn't confident enough to talk on camera. Started playing around with making videos of my rides that I didn't talk in. And unfortunately, I use copywritten music, so I eventually had to take those down. So you can't find them anywhere, sadly. They weren't that great anyways, but I think it would be cool to go back and see where I got started. I actually started this YouTube channel back in 2015, way before any of you knew who I was. I used to have to go to literally everyone I know just to get 30 views. It must have been so annoying to be my friend back then. So I also decided that a street bike wouldn't cut it, and I was missing out on a lot of dirt roads in Arizona, except for the ones that I would stupidly bring my Victory Tourer down, places that bike had zero business being. So eventually I decided to switch to an adventure bike. I debated heavily on which bike to take, eventually deciding on the BMW for lots of reasons, but it wasn't an easy choice. Hindsight, I'd say it was the perfect bike for me, and I'm super happy with it in spite of some of its quirks and the expense that it can sometimes be. It puts a smile on my face when I crawl out of my tent and see it in the morning, so that's all that really matters to me. I took a few more big trips around the US and was just kind of waiting for the day I could leave the country with my bike. I had to pay it off first, which was taking longer than expected. Eventually, I felt like the YouTube channel just wasn't going to work for me. I almost gave up 3 years in. I had a total of about 37 subscribers, so for those of you who are following the same path, don't give up. Sometimes it takes a while to find traction. I hit a crossroads with it, and I was ready to go, but I was just spinning my wheels. I decided to give myself one last attempt at the YouTube gig. I would take 1 year posting twice a week and speaking in all of my videos. The idea of it made me cringe, but I knew it was my only chance at making this thing work. I remember the first time I talked to the camera. I was like a deer in the headlights. I was so nervous and shaky. I filmed that first video, which was, I think, about the cost of motorcycle travel, I think. I filmed it like 4 times before I felt confident enough to post it, which was honestly not that confident at all. I was scared posting it, but I did it anyways. Something I learned motorcycle traveling is that if it's scary, you should probably push through it because there is probably something valuable in there, even if it's only just for personal growth. So I did it. I posted a talking video on YouTube and I put my head down and just poured all of my focus and energy into making videos twice a week for a year. The learning curve was massive. I had so many issues along the way with video equipment, or audio was touch and go for a long time, but I just kept going and I kept improving at least a little bit each time. There were a lot of setbacks and many times I wanted to just give up, but a few months into the year, something started to happen. People I didn't know were watching my videos. I didn't have to get everyone I know to watch my video just to breach the 30 views. And the most monumental thing to happen, people started reaching out to tell me that they appreciated what I was doing or that I had inspired them in some way. And I think that was the thing that solidified this for me. Even if I never made any money on YouTube, those connections, those messages I was getting were worth it tenfold. It's been a bumpy road at times on YouTube. Every once in a while, I get a crappy comment that ruins my day. I get frustrated with the camera equipment or the editing software. Things just don't always turn out the way I want. But this was another thing I learned with motorcycle travel, to just roll with it and have a little faith that things work out in the long run. The channel continued to grow way beyond anything I thought was possible, but something entirely unexpected happened. I felt my anxiety diminishing and my depression was almost entirely gone. I felt like I was finally doing something of value with my life, and I was able to pursue a life of passion, which was so incredibly fulfilling. After that first year was up, and I had smashed all reasonable goals for myself on YouTube, I had put all travel on hold for that year, or maybe a little bit longer than a year, because I was just so focused on the channel. I decided, and some of you strongly suggested, that I should actually show some travel on this channel rather than just talk about things I had already done. Any trips I did take during that year were just for me. They were meant as breaks, and they were short spurts anyway, so I didn't want to be filming during them. But the time was right for another big trip, and I saved up some money from the job I had been working at and decided to, yet again, quit my job and make a run for the open road. I figured if I stopped paying rent, I might be able to make a life on the road by cutting all my expenses and living off whatever money came in through the channel. And I could always stop and get a job somewhere if I needed. So I set out to ride to all the national parks, which had been a dream of mine for a while. It wasn't South America, but the bike still wasn't paid off, so it was the next best thing. I could make videos about all these places I loved going and share that with you on here. But the cool part about the whole deal, the best part of the trip, hands down, was meeting a bunch of you while I was out there. People invited me into their home, I ate dinner with them, I talked to people, and made so many wonderful friends. I started to realize that there are some really, really great people on the other side of this camera lens, which I knew from the messages and comments I was getting, but meeting face to face really gave me some perspective on things. You guys gave me so much strength and confidence to keep going and live my life to the fullest as long as I had the opportunity to do so. It meant so much to me, and I value my time with every one of you, everyone I got to meet, and I so look forward to seeing all of you again and meeting more of you as I continue to travel. So some of you know that I was in Mexico when the virus hit and I had to come home early, but as soon as things go back to normal, I have every intention of heading to South America and finishing out this dream of traveling the world by motorcycle. I can't wait to keep going and see where this journey takes me. I feel so fortunate to have found so many friends through this channel, and so much more than I had bargained for, in such a good way. So that is how I got to this point, and most of it was a matter of jumping in and correcting course along the way. Again, the parallels never end, but it is so similar to motorcycle travel. Just jump in, correct course along the way, and learn as you go. You can't possibly learn everything before taking the plunge. Just like riding a motorcycle, you can't learn it sitting in a classroom. You need to get out there and do it. So I guess you can say things have gotten a lot better for me, and I'm about as far away from where I've been as I can imagine getting. So if you are struggling with any of these things I talked about, addiction, anxiety, depression, or just feeling lost and hopeless, I promise it gets better if you keep moving forward and keep chasing brighter horizons. I know when I posted a video a few years ago talking about my struggles with addiction, a lot of people could relate to that, or they knew someone who was also struggling with that. I was bottom of the barrel, as low as anyone else, and I managed to make it out. Motorcycles were a huge part of that for me, but I think the real key was finding passion in my life, connection with other people, and a sense of wonder in the world. If you're struggling with this stuff, there is so much to stick around for, so much to see and do in the world, and even if it seems out of reach, the time is going to pass whether you do something or not. So even baby steps add up over time, and before you know it, you're so far from where you would have been if you had done nothing. Just do what you can with what you have for now. I didn't have any gear on my first trip. Nothing good anyways. And I took the bike I had and the money I could scrounge up and I made it work. And then I did the next thing and the next thing, and life got better. So that's my story. That is how I came to be where I am now. It is so great to be back on here. I needed a bit of a break from things, but I'm so excited to be back. I have a lot of videos I want to get out to you, and when I finally get to ride to South America, I'm so grateful you guys will be along for the ride through these videos with me. So thanks so much for being here. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you real soon. Ride safe.